Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we're talking big spending, agents descending upon the world of college sports, and Red Raiders we'd like to see hanging around for a while. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So visit FanDuel.com to get started today with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again, and want to dive into a couple of different things with you on today's episode. Some new concepts to consider as we are now in a new era for college sports. One of those, the thought of a long-term agreement with this guy or that girl, whoever the athlete may be in your program that you feel like, I'd like to spend some extended time with them. You're now hoping to lock them up. These are new descriptors, phrases, cliches, whatever, that are going to be applied to college sports that weren't necessarily in the lexicon just, I don't know, a few weeks ago, months ago, a couple years ago, but they are now. I sort of want to visit a Texas Tech list whenever it comes to maybe some guys like that. I also want to talk about the presence, and I'm sure ever growing, of agents and agreements factoring in between those types of third parties, middlemen, whatever it might be, and maybe what that balance looks like actually within a roster or a locker room. But I want to kick off the conversation, Chris, talking big spenders. We had this look at a top 10 list as put together by On3 this week, and it basically was compiled of votes that represented what they called college football power brokers of sorts. There were head coaches in the mix, boosters in the mix, administrators, general managers. There were NIL collective leadership that were also voting on this, agents, and the like. So I'll give you a quick rundown of what this looks like. Top 10 biggest spenders per that collection of people. Number 1, the University of Texas. Number 2, Texas Tech. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Oregon. Number 5, the Aggies. Miami Hurricanes next, Michigan number 7, USC next, Tennessee and Auburn would round out that group with some mentions for a few others from the SEC and the Big Ten. I'll get to those in just a moment. But Chris, we know you're kind of swimming in this rare air. A lot of the conversation would make it seem like you're the only one out there, but clearly not. It's a familiar cast of characters still offering up great financial reward for some football success, right?
Yeah, you just happen to be in the in this space where which one of these doesn't look like the other, and what I mean by that is you haven't exactly won a national championship, a conference championship, been to the playoff like A&M hasn't either, but they're the butt end of the wrong joke here. But like, most of these other ones have kind of been heavily involved, or they're trying to desperately, like Auburn, for example, desperately trying to catch up and whatnot. But other people
long ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Other people did do some catching up.
Yes, they did. Other people spend money too, though. To your point, yeah, they it's just yours. Yours has been more either high profile or been. I don't know, maybe there's been more transparency on your behalf. Whereas like you mentioned Texas, I think there was a columnist that wrote about UT's class and their dollar figures. And then there were several podcasts that came out and different writers pointing at it going, yeah, I've asked, that's not real. And like, he's like, I wish I had that much money. And
yeah, 40 million was the number that they were throwing out.
Yeah. And maybe it's not quite that much, whatever, but they are well-to-do, and they've got a bunch of high-profile NFL draft pick types on their team that I'm sure are just playing for free, right?
Yeah, it also ain't the 25 he's throwing out now.
No, yeah, no.
Neither of those numbers can be true, I guess.
And all of this, there's in the professional ranks, regardless of sport, it's all very transparent. I mean, there are websites out there built with salary caps and like contractual figures, and you kind of know where everybody's at. And this is again, these are anonymous polls. This is hearsay. This is there's this, there's that, and you just don't ultimately know. I wouldn't be surprised if where the Red Raiders rank is close to accurate. I can't say that it is. I will say this, and I know they're mentioned in the extra category, if you will, like they weren't in the top 10, but I'm surprised LSU did not, because they did serious damage in the portal, and it wasn't free. The comment that's made in like Texas Tech section is that you're having to pay more, 30% more because of location. I think part of that is true, but I also think part of it is because of what Joey has said is the biggest negative that he's trying to overcome, is that you haven't done anything before. You haven't been to Arlington. You haven't played in the CFP. You're taking a chance, because most guys, they want the most money and the best chance to win. And you can't exactly offer that, or based on, you're just taking my word for it. Hey, we're trying to do something. I want you to be a part of it. Whereas other schools, like I can go make a ton of money and I get a chance to win a championship, whether it be conference or national. So that's the part that you're trying to overcome. And he wants to check that off the box so that can't be used against you. So they can say, hey, man, not only can we pay you really well, but you can come win and win big here. But until you do it, that's a knock. And I think that has as much to do with you may be having to overpay, if that's the perception, as much as location or geography.
Okay, so if we're having to overpay due to X and somebody is paying more than we are, does that mean the same for Austin or Eugene, Oregon, or is it just in the Texas Tech context that we've got to mention, well, there's this qualifier as to why they're having to overpay?
Yeah,
I didn't see that thrown in for anybody else.
And that's fair. That's fair. And like, I wonder about the Austin, the Los Angeles, or just state of California in general, but it's really USC is what it applies to.
Yeah.
Like, cost of living, the taxes or whatever else that come with, being in one of these other cities.
Calabasas ain't cheap, Chris. You know that. Can I throw some of these numbers at you that On3 is attaching
sure.
to these programs? And just like you're describing there, you can't nail this down as a gospel-worthy figure. There's so much gray area and speculation and this or that may or may not be true, as in the case of the University of Texas, like we were just talking about. $40 million reported. Steve says now it's 25. We know it's maybe neither. I don't know, but I bet you it's north of 30, north of 35, possibly. Texas Tech, they have slotted in, per their description, north of $28 million. Ohio State, according to what they describe as On3 sources, says north of the $35 million mark. They don't offer up a dollar figure for Oregon. They say north of $20 million, well over $20 million is the way they describe it for the Aggies. As far as what you've got for the Hurricanes, they don't offer a team total. They just cite some of the individual agreements that we know of. They go beyond $20 million for Michigan, the way they describe it there. Same thing with USC. So you do kind of begin to get an idea, I guess, possibly of where you're looking at amount-wise, total amount-wise, if you're considering competing in this type of category. And as you mentioned, LSU just outside the list, or that top 10 list they put together. Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Penn State, Arizona State gets a vote as well. Some others that are just outside that category. But this kind of tells you, I guess, whether it's a hard and fast figure or not, it doesn't really matter. It tells you kind of where the neighborhood is, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And a lot of these people are on this list for retention, not the bringing the outside in. It's we gotta pay you to keep you, and to keep you from playing with one of our rivals or whatever. I mean, South Carolina was mentioned. I think Michigan. So anyway, there's a lot of and Tech's on this list for a different reason, I think, compared to, like, it wasn't. You had to retain Jacob Rodriguez. I think you had to retain Baron Morton. They had interest from outside parties and maybe some others too, but I know those two for a fact were. So anyway, and you know, like professional sports, when the games start, nobody cares. When the games start, nobody gives a damn who's making what, who was promised this, who was paid this, who overdid this, who underdid this. Did you win? Did you lose? And how many times did you do each of these things? That's all that ultimately will matter here. And you can say, oh, well, they're going to be in trouble in the next recruiting cycle because they paid all this money and they didn't get anything to show for it. I mean, A&M, mind you, had like this number one ranked recruiting class. What was it, 2 or 3 years ago? Mm-hmm. Very high profile. They all left. It was a disaster. And it was the high school variety. It was a disaster. There's very few of them left there. They're still ranking here and spending, right? And so, you know, if you're well-to-do, you're going to keep swinging away at it and keep trying to crack the code, get the right coach in there, get the right chemistry in there, and whatnot. But I just, as much as we talk about these things, and everybody's talking about these things in July, once you get to August 30th, ain't nobody care, man. You know, like who made what? Whether it's the coach, the defensive tackle, the edge guy, the QB guy, whatever. It's like, did we win? Did we lose? How many times did we win, or how many times did we lose? So that point shouldn't be overlooked either.
Yeah, we may call it off for 4 quarters. I do think after the end of the fourth quarter, it begins to creep back into the mind pretty quick of a fan. You're paying how much to this guy? Either you feel like it's a deal, it's a discount, or it's grossly overpaid, depending upon the result of that day. That's kind of a different, that's going to be a different sort of experience, particularly if this stuff were to become much more public or easily accessible. Kind of a different experience to assign, or a different lens to assign watching college sports through. You described just a moment ago something I want to get to here in just a minute, the thought of long-term agreements when you were discussing retention. You know, you're thinking now about not only having him back for another season, but what's a window here for a guy that we can commit to him, and we know he'll commit to us and remain on campus. I want to get to that in just a minute, but I was also curious to get your thoughts on another angle. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? And with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet only $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Again, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. But I was also curious to get your thoughts on another angle as far as the roster and the locker room, Chris, because I saw recently a Tech representative, I think quoted in an article, talking about upwards of 20, maybe 30 Red Raiders who right now were officially, you know, agreed to with an agent that was, or a representative of some kind. And I'm sort of thinking at first, you know, on the surface, is that something that doesn't go down all that smooth for an average college sports fan? Like, okay, there's agents now flocking to this, but I'm also wondering if maybe is that the more appealing scenario when you've got some type of, you know, like you talked about the other day? I mean, hopefully these are not just any guys off the street. They've been through whatever certification processes that would be akin to like professional agents. But I'm kind of wondering, I don't know, does a head coach or a general manager prefer those who maybe are a little bit more organized or have that representation?
This one is tricky. I think yes and no. Okay, so it depends on who you're dealing with. It depends on what that representation's motivation is, and the player or the parents, you know, what their motivation is. let's use an example right now that's playing out in the NFL. Okay, I always tie this to the Cowboys for whatever reason, but it's a perfect example. Micah Parsons is up for a massive new contract. He is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. I think he's trying to seek the most money that he can make, which is what he should do. I think he wants to be in Dallas. His agent, is trying to secure the biggest bag he can. Well, at some point, Micah Parsons may have to say, hey, man, I really want to be here. Figure it out. Get it done. I'm not worried about length, or I'm not worried about guarantee. This is where I want to be. Figure it out. Get us the best deal where I can, or let's play it out. Let's skip some camp. Let's do this to try to squeeze them a little bit and try to maximize. And you know what? If it means that I'm not going to get to play here anymore and it'll be elsewhere, so be it. But let's ruffle some feathers and maximize my value right now. And so you get all these components, and that's where, when you're dealing with an agency, and in the NFL, they're all certified. They have to be, or they can't legally operate this way. College is not this way. This is one of the major problems going on. I think Texas Tech has been very good about dealing with the right people and doing what they say, and so there's a good reputation there.
Okay, so I'm wrong actually in what I described. I thought there had been a shift into more organized representation. So I'm wrong to say it can't just be anybody off the street. It definitely
it absolutely can be. Okay, it can be big brother, it can be trainer that just wants to be the handler that's trying to get paid too. It can be whoever the hell.
Podcast host. Let's pick one to bring up, Chris, me and you.
That's right.
Let's be handlers.
And that has been a bit of a problem because there's not any regulation or certification. I mean, Joey was fairly outspoken about this in the last year, saying some of these handler or agent types are taking like a gross percentage from these kids. And so, whereas the NFL, I think that there's a cap on that. It's like it's across the board and all these things. So anyway, it's just that part of the world is, you hope you're dealing with somebody that is trying to do what's best for their client and whatnot, and trying to be fair. And I get you're trying to maximize and all that stuff. You also want somebody that tells you the truth, because there's the art of the negotiation. Well, so-and-so's offering this, so-and-so's offering this. What are you going to do? And is that true or not? There's some ways to try to prove it, but so that part is tricky. You ask about multi-year agreements. Can we get to that at this point?
Yes, I'd love to touch on that.
Yeah, because this is something we first touched on, I don't know, a year ago, and we knew this was going to be kind of a thing or an option. And, well, why don't you just sign everybody to a multi-year agreement? Well, there's got to be two willing parties here. I think there's some advice out there from the agent community. I'm not letting any guy I rep sign anything more than a one-year deal, because he can continue to maximize his value every year. Mm-hmm. I can see where the school very much wants to wrap up Will Hammond, Howard Sampson, A.J. Holmes, Mikael Dingle. I don't know. Keep going. Some of your younger players with multi-years of eligibility left. Quentin Joyner. I could see where you would absolutely want to lock those guys up for multi-year purposes. Now, does that mean you have to commit a bit extra to them to secure them? Keep in mind, if you're in a multi-year agreement, it doesn't mean that you can't still enter the portal. Somebody else can come get you, and if you do enter the portal, they've got to pay a buyout fee that counts against their cap. You follow me? Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you've got a player that you really like and that really likes being here, and if you can come to an agreement, so you don't have to, you can just remove that from the table, like a Hammond or a Sampson or a, I don't know. I'm just giving out some examples of guys that I know have multi-years left here. I mean, Sheridan Wilson. I'm trying to think of some of the other players that you've got on your team. By all means, but again, it takes two parties to be willing to do that, because there's only so much cap number to go around. There's only so much, and we may go, hey, I mean, I don't know if we want to sign you to a multi-year agreement. Well, no, I'd love to be here. I mean, it could work both ways too, but
Sure.
It could be quite fascinating on kind of who gets that designation, who's willing to be designated as such, and what agreements you can come up with on how many players like that. Because if you're the coach and you've got the right kind of nucleus, I try to sign as many of them to multi-year agreements that I possibly could.
I was going to ask, what do you think? What's your feel for, like, what is that number? Or what's an ideal percentage? Is it like a third or more if you can pull it off?
I doubt you could get half, maybe a third.
And where's the sweet spot for some roster turnover too? I think, because you also don't want to carry all these guys, do you, forever?
We are in uncharted territory because this is much like Felix Ojo in that conversation. When you commit a dollar figure to an unproven commodity at your level, you better have picked right. Same goes for multi-year agreements on your side of it. You better be sure about who you're putting that in front of. The person, the player, the injury history, whatever.
The family, the handler.
Yeah. You better have picked right, because if you don't, you've kind of screwed yourself. So anyway, this is uncharted territory, and I don't know if we really have a good feel yet for how all of this is going to go. Multi-year agreements. How many are willing to it? How many are you willing to do? How many are be willing to sign something? How does the cap figure work? Because think about it. If I'm Will Hammond, I may be worth this much as Baron Morton's backup. What happens next year when you're going to think of me as a starter? Like, what did my cap number? How much did it go up?
Yeah.
I mean, so there's that too. Like, it's like any contract. You want to increase as your work gets better and you're being counted on more and all that. Well, how is that allocated on paper? I don't know.
Yeah, and kind of the timeline for contract progression will be really interesting to observe, because I think it's going to be different than what you see professionally when you're talking about like a rookie contract, and then you have this window. Well, did you play well, and yada yada yada. But I don't know. At least to me, I would think that would sort of work itself out a little differently as far as college eligibility is concerned. And at least so far what we've seen, whenever it comes to players being on the move to try and get on the field, if they haven't been so far. I know we'll get to this also on an upcoming episode, probably tomorrow actually, regarding, some professional assessments employed and utilized by Tech as a program. I don't know if analytics is the right word or what exactly it is, but I want to get to a service that was employed by Tech to help put this whole thing together, which I think in large part factors into what you're describing there, trying to pick the right guys, which is definitely, I think, more art than science, if I had to guess one or the other.
Yeah, and we'll get into that tomorrow. I think it's because it's been the first time that I've heard anybody from Texas Tech really talk about it publicly, and Coach McGuire did so on some scheduling stuff that we'll get into. And anyway, we're rocking and rolling here, man. I was at a function yesterday or the day before, I guess it was, and saw somebody that came up to me and watches us every day, and they were like, man, I'm trying to get through this off season with you guys, but man, I want games to start. Hey, we're doing the best we can. We can't speed up August 30th any quicker. Our job is to try to entertain and educate and get, make time pass a little bit quicker. Sometimes we do good, sometimes we don't. I don't know. Cowan always does better than I do, but we appreciate you listening. And the off season the days are slowly dripping off. Yeah.
I feel like it's flown by. I got to be honest. We're in the middle of July. I mean, camp is just a couple of weeks away, and we've got a football game in August. Don't forget, we're creeping into the month in August with a season kickoff. And for that individual, thank you so much for being part of the Locked On Texas Tech fam family. But I do want to remind you, there's going to be a point, likely, I hope not, but there's going to be a point probably when the games begin that you think, God, I wish this game wasn't happening right now. I wish we could can we just pause for a second? catch our breath. So
Yeah.
pace yourself. Let's enjoy all aspects of the calendar.
Yeah, no
Thank
doubt.
you all for being out there. Appreciate you so much once again for joining us here on Locked On at Texas Tech. Chris, thanks for your time as always, man, and we'll catch you for the next one.
Yes, sir. Keep hope alive, man. And we're closer right now than we were yesterday. So we'll keep swinging away at it.
That's right. Mark another day on the calendar, and that's specifically for our convicts and shut-ins that I know are out there. We'll be free someday, boys, one way or another, on this side or the other. Unintentional Rhyme Master in the building to wrap up the program. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the Everydayers and the Matador Mob for always being out there riding along. You can find a link to a free 14-day trial in our show notes. If you're interested in joining that crew, that's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.